Wangaratta has a long and prominent history of textiles, both in manufacturing and as a craft form. This week, we chat to gallery director Simone Nolan about whether petite textiles have had their day, the challenges of creating a piece to fit within 25 centimetres square, the appeal of the small, and we preview some of the works in this year's Petite Miniature Textiles exhibition and take a close look at a few of the finalists from 2020. Artists have certainly had a lot to respond to in the last few years, and we are delighted to be able to share these textile works with you from a small regional gallery in Victoria, who are responsible for around 20 exhibitions a year, a big achievement for a small team. The gallery collects contemporary textile art, small sculptures and significant works of art from Australian artists, and holds the most significant acquisitive award for textile art across Australia. Jillian Binky was the winner of the Wangaratta Contemporary Textile Award in 2021, and we are delighted to share a video of her discussing her winning work, Cope. So settle in and enjoy this week's chat with gallery director Simone, who shares her passion for textile arts with us, and you wherever you are in the world. We'd still love to hear from you, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. So let's get started with our 67th Friday feature artist. Welcome, Simone, and welcome everyone. And just to let you know that this week is a little bit different, and even though we are live, the broadcast is not live, but we'd love you to leave your comments, and if you have any questions, we'll endeavour to get back to you. But in the meantime, welcome Simone, who's director of Wangaratta Gallery. And Simone, I realised that I had no idea where Wangaratta is, so if you could just start by explaining to everyone in our broader audience where you are and then perhaps the role of the gallery.
Thank you for having me, Tara. It's so lovely to join you. Wangaratta is in northeast Victoria, sort of midway between Melbourne and Albury-Wodonga as you head up into New South Wales. We're sort of the gateway to the high country, so very beautiful river flats, and then as you go a little bit further into the valley, into the mountainous region. We are one of the smallest regional galleries in Victoria, so we do sit within the public gallery sector of Victoria, but we're one of the smallest teams. We put out about 20 to 22 exhibitions per year across 3 spaces, but we really do jam-pack our program for such a small team. And one of our highlights is our textile program. So I'm really pleased to talk to you about that a little bit more today.
Yes, and so that's actually, I should mention why I invited you in the first place, because I remember, and I can't believe that it was actually 2 years ago, the Petite and Miniature Textiles. And probably as you'll go on to explain, you did an amazing pivoting job of having a virtual tour of that exhibition. And yes, and so with excitement, the 2022 is about to open next week. So yes.
It is, which we're so pleased to be back live and open and physically being able to welcome people into the gallery. So back in 2022, I think Victoria and the rest of Australia, or most parts of Australia, had locked down into COVID. And Petite is one of our highest visitation periods, along with our Contemporary Textile Award. They happen in alternate years. But we get a really big following with Petite Miniatures. People are very fond of the Petite Miniatures program. It's a lot of fun. It's really accessible. So we really had to work quite hard as a team to think. We questioned whether to do it because we knew people couldn't possibly access the gallery. We didn't know we were in March. We didn't know what June looked like. That's when we installed the show. We'd already received all the entries. I think that year we had 97 entries, which was a little bit down compared to other years, but due to COVID, that was to be expected. And then we just thought, we'll give it a go. We'll install it and we'll photograph it mainly, maybe. That's sort of where we're heading. Anyway, what we did, we were probably one of the first galleries in Victoria that I know of, because we actually got highlighted to come along and speak at some online sessions to do the Massport 3D imaging in exhibition sort of experience. And that was really popular. We found a local young man who did it for the real estate agents, and we approached him and he said, I can do that for your gallery. It's the same. I know exactly what software you need. I know how to do it for you. And he was brilliant at working with us on the labels of the artworks and embedding all the right information into those labels. The next layer we went to, which this young man called Richard from Little Brother Studios, that was his company, we embedded all of the artists' Instagram or website pages into the live experience of the exhibition as well. So it was multi-layered and just so exciting for us. It was the first 3D exhibition experience we'd ever done, and we were really proud of ourselves as such a small team to do it so well.
Like, who would have thought? But it makes perfect sense of something that's used predominantly for real estate would translate so well, because I know some of those things did take a little while to sort of, kind of work out how you would move through the space. But I did have a sense of walking into the room, seeing something on a plinth in the distance and approaching that and seeing more about it. So it did work really well, yes.
It did. And, we put the post out on Facebook to say, yes, it's going ahead, and watch this space, because I think we almost admitted we didn't know how we were going to get it to the public, but we're going to get it out there. And then he contacted us as a provider to say, I think I can help you. So that was really fantastic.
Yeah. And I'm conscious of your time today, so we want to cover as much as we can while we have you with us. And so I have 3 of those works from that year. So if you can tell us more about, we've got this one from Amanda Ho.
Yeah, it's a beautiful work. Amanda Ho is a regular in the Petite Miniature program. She also regularly applies for our Contemporary Textile Award. This is a lovely small work. So as you know, the themes of the Petite exhibition is miniature. So in the 2020 year, I think the sizes were 30 by 30. So we accept any work that is within those size restrictions. Amanda's was, I think it was like 20 by 20, this particular work. It was during the period where she had a residency with the Australian Tapestry Workshop, and she was working there and watching a really large tapestry that had come back to the ownership of the Oz Tapestry Workshop to be cleaned. Actually, it happened to be an Australian tapestry work that we had in our storage at the time. So the connection was really lovely. It was a Murray Walker tapestry that the AMP building had had in their foyer for over 20, 25 years, and it was getting professionally cleaned. And Amanda was watching the vacuum filters collect all these variant colours, and that's what inspired this work. When they pulled out the vacuum filter, they would put them into these 6x6 grids, and her work replicates the colours that the vacuum collected. And she's really trying to interpret the dirt and the filth and perhaps the stories that tapestry being on the wall so long in a foyer observed, like a fly on the wall. What stories could this tapestry tell? So it was a really beautiful work. We had some of Amanda's work in our collection, and this was one work that we went on and acquired because it had such a lovely connection to us as a gallery, because at the time we were holding the tapestry in our collection as well.
Yeah, it's all just really feeding in there.
She's got a beautiful minimalist approach, Amanda. Her work's got this lovely sort of subtlety about it, but there's always these lovely layers of stories behind it.
And also I was reading about the tactile nature of textiles, which I guess is obvious. And then this one we have from Ruby Berry, she particularly mentions about holding it. And yeah, can you tell us?
She does. Absolutely. So the black one I think is called Hold, but the red one was one that we picked up. It's titled Pomegranate, and both works are created through the medium of basketry. The pomegranate, I think, is mostly hand-dyed silk, and the other one is a combination of wool and I had the details somewhere, but I think it's basketry as well, and a combined 2 materials. But pomegranate we really picked up. We love the simplicity of this work. It was quite miniature. It really referenced, I guess, the stage of life Ruby was going through with being a new mother. It represented fertility, and also the hold piece as well was about containment and creating comfort. So we really loved some of the simple themes that Ruby put into both of these works. And we selected both because we felt one didn't work well without the other. Mm-hmm. And again, they were very strong minimal pieces, and petite is quite hard to stay within the restrictions and really master a beautifully aesthetically delivered sculptural piece or two-dimensional piece within all the themes, as well as being technically advanced, which is another thing that we look for in the petite miniature restrictions of the brief, I guess. But yeah, a beautiful piece. We ended up working with Ruby and we made that the promotional work for all our call for entries because of its lovely simplicity in sculptural form. We thought it really won in that area of having a beautiful sense of form.
Yeah, I mean, I do, as a personal level, I do love miniature things, but in basket weaving, it also kind of works so well because you can go through them a lot quicker than
exactly.
I know that's not the purpose of weaving, that it's meant to be. It's also good for the hands if it's smaller and takes it. So I have various little tiny baskets. So one day I'll enter.
And it's quite a skill Bacchustry as well. It's it's not easy to do well.
Yeah, wrangling those huge pieces, but and yeah, like the little tiny ones can be very fiddly as well. And we also have this piece from that year from Alana.
Yeah, so this piece was quite, I guess, symbolic of many applications that we got at the time. So we were in March 2020 when we were assessing all the applications. So Australia had just been through the 2020 bushfires. That was very real for us in Northeast Victoria, in Wangaratta. In fact, right next door to our gallery, our Performing Arts Centre had been an evacuation centre for all of the fires up in the hill area, right up to Tallangatta and up towards Tabletop and Albury-Wodonga area. We weren't fire affected in Wangaratta, but we were definitely smoke affected. And our gallery was closed for quite some time before COVID even kicked in. Wow. I think we were open for 4 weeks between just during the time of February when the smoke finally cleared, and then COVID kicked in at towards the March period. So what we found was we got a lot of our textile artists reflecting on the bushfires and how it affected communities, but also many concerns around climate change. And Alana's work is exactly around that. So they're machine knitted pieces. And what she's done is she's actually collected data from the CSIRO around 3 major climate change events in Australia. She's picked up those statistics and that data and put them into the knitting machine. And this was the result, which we just thought was a really progressive work, really cleverly sort of combining materials and a really good sense of design. But there's this scientific data behind the works, which we really enjoyed. Many people had commented on it, but Alana really nailed this theme, and that's why it was chosen.
Yeah, I'm just completely in awe of artists that are able to translate, the often significant events or personal stories and then put them into some artwork that's just, that I couldn't possibly see how that comes together. So I'm just always, completely in awe of that.
Yeah.
And so how many entries did you say you had for this year's Petite exhibition?
I had to write that down. So this year we got 2,214 entries, and we've picked, I think, 93 entrants in the end. So this year is going to be a lot more jam-packed. The year before, because we knew it was going to be filmed rather than experienced, we had taken it back to about 53 works. So there's a lot more works back in Petite this year. It's kind of back to its old form of delivery. But it's really interesting. For some time we thought, I think before the 2020 delivery, we had actually decided to cancel Petite. We thought it had had its day, and that the audience was sort of fizzing out. We thought it has to be reinvigorated somehow. And then because of COVID, we just thought, well, we have nothing else. We'll just keep going with it. And what proved to us was when we held some of our online forums, the audience that we got on a national perspective really proved to us that there's people following this outside of our region and outside of our state, and really interested in the space of what Petite Miniature Textiles actually is. And then we did lots more research and really found that there's quite we sort of knew it, but COVID gave us the opportunity to look into it further. There's quite an international movement with Petite Miniature Textiles, and we're one of the few countries that hold this event every 2 years. So we're holding on to it, and we just hope each year it gets better. The change we made this year was we brought the size down even further. So it's gone from 30 by 30 down to 25 by 25, because we're really trying to challenge our artists to think about what do we mean by the concept of petite miniatures and how can you respond to that theme.
So and I can imagine the curators and yourself standing around and kind of going, oh, did they read the description, and then getting out the tape measure? I mean, are there a handful of people that just don't read that small print?
Absolutely. There's people that still submit and don't fit into the guidelines of size. We sometimes, unfortunately, have works that don't fit within the making period. So we have a certain period, we want recent works. We don't want something from 2 years ago. So unfortunately, there's some times where we have to get back to the artist and let them know that they haven't filled the brief, which is heartbreaking. And look, it's a heartbreaking decision to decide. All the works are so wonderful in their own way.
It reminds me of when you go to the post office and they bring up the little thing and they try and put your parcel through. I'm sure you're not.
It doesn't fit. Yeah, it's very much like that. Absolutely. Yeah.
So we're very excited that we've got a preview of 3 of the pieces. And so we have this piece from the upcoming exhibition from Lulu, which again was an opportunity to respond to the events of recent times.
Yeah, Lulu talks about this being a very therapeutic piece. It's very sculptural. And I think her therapist had asked her to respond to the upsetting feelings that she had inside. I have a quote here somewhere. But the therapist's instruction was to visualize the shape and feeling inside of her body. And this is what she had come back with, which, it really gets to the core of, I guess, the inner self and that unsettled feeling. It's also referencing the Brisbane floodwaters and when the water rose and then went away. So it's quite a recent reflection on recent events, this work. And it was a reflection on that colour of the brown and what it left behind. So her therapeutic moment with this is coming out of COVID, but then the Brisbane floods came along and I guess half of New South Wales and Queensland was suffering terrible flood events. So this is what this work reflects in quite a real and uncomfortable way. The sculpture depicts that sense of discomfort, unrest, and that knotted feeling inside. It's also got a little bit of uncertainty about it as well.
It does. It really has that uncomfortable sort of, you kind of do react to it. And then by contrast, Helly's piece is also commenting on something, quite substantial, but it has also that sense of humour and joyfulness in it as well.
It does, and that's a different piece altogether. She's used a theme of crochet, and what she calls the work is symbolic in that she references it as a thought noodle. So I guess it's also reflecting on the recent events in New South Wales, but it's this objective expression that nothing was really making sense, and it was a sense of, again, looking inside and trying to make sense of all the things that had been going on, again, coming out of COVID, and then the irrational reality of these floods to levels that they'd never seen before. So this was also, I guess, a very deep look within, but also, I guess, projecting light that there's a way out as well. So it's a little bit more joyful, this piece. I guess both works aesthetically stand alone in quite a unique way. For different reasons, but Halle's work, I guess aesthetically, there's so much colour, and the way she's placed all of the little intricate aspects to that thought process that she's having is really why we chose the work.
Yeah, I love her concept of thought noodle. And lastly, we just want to share this piece by Joshua Burgess. And we'll put the links to these artists in the comments below afterwards, as I realise we're probably not pronouncing, the artist names clearly enough for you to jot down notes. But so this piece from Joshua adds a bit of colour also.
This is quite a simplistic piece visually. This is a detail, the photograph, but it's actually more the process that the artist went through in the I think it's rami is the natural fibre, and then the acrylic fibre. And the rami is created in China across the world, and he had 2 artists collaborating, or makers of twine, collaborating across the world. So there's a whole nother layer and I guess commentary or juxtaposition of the acrylic and the natural fibres in this work. So it was, I guess, the detail of the concept behind the work that really caught our eye. It's quite a joyful piece to look at and very simple, but you know, that contrast of colour and that natural fibre really stood out. But then as we've explored more into his artist statement about the international collaboration, it really excited us for such a tiny little piece of work. We thought that was, again, brilliant, that further thinking that the artists are taking with this award, with this exhibition, sorry. Yeah.
And will all the works be available to watch online this year for those that can't all make it to that tiny pocket?
Yeah. Yes, Tara, we are keeping our 3D exhibition experience accessible because we just realised it was not everyone can travel interstate, and it's a really popular exhibition that people across the nation want to experience. Well, people across the world, really. Anyone can access this exhibition once it's up on our website, and it's a really exciting show to really get in close, and just making it available for our audience is just a whole nother level that COVID forced us to think about. There's no use it just being available behind the four walls anymore.
So back to the gallery's role in this, you know, you really do seem to be championing textile art, Fibre Arts, and you mentioned that you also have the other textile award. Can you explain a little bit more about that? And then we'd like to share the work of last year's winner.
Absolutely. So Wangaratta has a significant textile industry history. So our social history connected to the textile industry is really strong. It was in the 1920s what transitioned our town from a agricultural based town into an industry town. So brucks and woolen mills. There were other textile factories that really brought a lot of the migrants down from Bongilla to Wangaratta region. It helped with our population growth and just transformed the town. So we tell the story of textiles in our collection. We collect mostly contemporary textiles and other works. And part of the way that we do that is our acquisitive Contemporary Textile Award, which happens biannually every year that Petite isn't on. So Petite happens, I guess, in this year, which is 2022. And then we're building up towards November of this year to call for entries so that next year we can have our 2023 Contemporary Textile Award. Both projects have been going for about 12 to 13 years now. And the Contemporary Textile Award is a way of us acquiring really, really great emerging textile sort of cutting edge artists. It's sort of next level. We get a lot of emerging younger artists who are really like Paul Yor, Kate Just is in the collection. It's a really exciting space for contemporary textiles, and we like to think we own that space, and we have a very good reason to be focusing on textiles at the Wangaratta Art Gallery. So I would like to go now to Jillian Binky, who was our winner in 2021, and Jillian's a really good example of someone who has come through the Petite program and been included in the exhibition over a number of years. She's also been included in the Contemporary Textile Award a number of times, but then last year she really sort of succeeded in her entry, and the judge could not ignore this piece. It was a really lovely, well, not lovely, really important piece, and it's now very proudly in our collection permanently. So I'm happy for you to go to this if you like.
Yes, I'd love to share that, and thank you for letting us play that. It's fantastic.
Hello, my name's Jillian Binky, and I'm one of the artists in the Wangaratta Contemporary Textile Award this year, 2021. So my piece in this show is called Cope. Now, cope is another word for cape, and if you look at it, the semicircular shape of it, you can see why it's called that. So this piece is inspired by an old liturgical garment called cope that is often stitched with religious stories and things like that. So I wanted to take that concept and have a little play with that in a modern, with modern concepts and modern ideas. So the cope is a garment that has not changed its shape for hundreds of years, which I thought was such an amazing idea that something could serve a purpose in that shape for such a long time. It's so simple yet so effective in what it does for the wearer. So it used to be highly embroidered with stories of Christ. The investment of time that people put into something like that, I thought was such a beautiful thing. And then I decided that if I were to make one, what would those stories be, and how would I incorporate my life or aspects of my life into something that comes from such an old shape and form. When I start a work like this one, I don't really have a plan. I don't really know exactly what it's going to look like. I have little sketches sometimes of things that might come into a piece, but I don't draw the whole plan of the work and then sit down and start doing it. So really, I start somewhere and I gather ideas as I go. So with this one here, I started with that central piece that is the sort of the shield shape, let's call it, which is the remnant of the hood that these garments would have a long time ago in sort of medieval times would have had a hood on them. That hood became less and less useful, and then it became just the remains of it just stayed as a shape, as a design. And so I incorporated that idea into my work as well. So I started with the little central beast. Now he's got all of the texture and detail that I really laboured over initially as I started this piece. So lots of beads, lots of different materials. I think that's the thing in my work that I focus on a lot, is how I can get tactile texture into my work. I know that you all can't go up and touch this work, but it is something that is a big part of how I create my work, is how it feels. It's just the nature of textiles, and I think a lot of people are drawn to those things themselves in textiles, how they feel, the clothes they wear, what they feel like, not just on your body but in your hand when you first touch them. So in other little details of my work, I've embroidered in the top of the cope there, so up the top of the cope, which would then, if you're wearing it, it would hang down the front. It is little symbols of power. We have the drugs, the weapons, the money, the privilege, and the kind of surveillance and travel, and the online engagement that we have with each other in a sort of modern world. And then in the body of the cope, just all the little details that I've stitched in there that I have made look like rubbish. So I wanted to stitch in the little things that I use every day, that maybe you use every day as well, the things that are necessary to our lives, the things that maybe not so necessary but we still use and need and want. So I wanted those to just be falling away from the center of the cope, as though they have been dropped. So they're falling onto the ground, collecting kind of at the edge of this cope, creating, a beautiful sort of spread of the things that I use in my life. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that sort of gives a little bit of an overview of the work that I have there in Wangaratta Art Gallery. Thank you so much.
Wow, that's fantastic. And this is going to sound obvious, but just when you the 2D and then putting it on like a cloak, it's amazing how it just transforms into something else entirely.
Absolutely. It was a very powerful work. There were many strong works in the 2021 award, but it was mainly the symbolism and the form that that Jillian had chosen. There was so much symbolism that was representative of the time in relation to the pandemic and this unique period that we were going through as a society. The judge just could not get past that as far as collecting goes, and artworks that are commenting on social history right in that time. It just captured our period in a really correct way, or a relevant way as to recording the award and recording the textile collection that we have.
And so you mentioned that the call for entries will be happening in November. Is that international as well, or is it just Australian?
No, we've kept it Australian, I guess, just because of the logistics, again, of us being a very small team. And we are, I guess, trying to really, we feel we lay claim to Australian contemporary textiles in the public gallery sector. There's no other award like ours, and we're really delighted to, I guess I could announce we are heading towards an enlarged attraction of fee for that award. So it will go from a $10,000 acquisitive award to a $40,000 award. And we've been really generously supported by a local foundation called the Kiamba Foundation, who has been following our progress in the textile sector, contemporary textile sector, for quite some time, and they've really supported our work in this area. So we are looking forward to announcing that sort of in the next couple of months. I've let the secret, the cat out of the bag now, but it will be where we just really wanted to match the award with what we believe these textile artists are entitled to, and matches closer to, I mean, some of these artists work on the works for over 18 months, and we really wanted to start matching NAVA rates and being a bit more of a significant award. And the award money hadn't gone up for sort of over 10 years, so it was well and truly time. We're just really fortunate to have found that support financially. So we're really excited about the next iteration of this award. I think it will change into something else with this enhanced financial award.
Definitely. So for those Australian textile artists, I'm sure you've got it all marked in your calendars, but if not, get out that red pen and keep a note of that one. And also, yes, for otherwise, we'll be keen for the reveal of this year's Petite Miniature Textiles, which is happening next week. So in light of that, I know that you've kind of acting in several roles at the moment, and we do appreciate you taking time out from that. And I know you've probably got to run away, so I'm conscious of time. Was there anything else that we needed to mention?
No, anyone who's interested, I would encourage everyone to get onto our website. You can join our e-news with no charge, and we don't over-inundate your inbox, but it's a really good way to find out about, you can actually go down into the tab and be identified as a textile artist, so you'll just get our textile artist news and updates. So I highly recommend anyone who's wanting to know more about our textile art or contemporary textile art opportunities to get onto our website and do that. And also follow us on Instagram and Facebook. They're the best ways to keep up to date, because we're just trying to grow our audience in this space all the time. So thank you so much for having us, Tara. I hope people come to Petite. It's on for over 10 weeks. I think it's open for. So it opens very soon, and we're just delighted to be able to promote it here on your platform. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It's been amazing. And as I said, we're not live today, but please leave your comments, because we do go back and read them, and we'd love to hear from you. And thank you so much. And yes, we look forward to seeing the exhibition next week. Okay.
Thanks, Tara.
Simone.
Thank you. Okay. Bye.